All right, everybody, welcome into episode 76 of Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports. It's May 11th, 2023, and there is so much sports going on between NBA playoffs, Stanley Cup playoffs, NFL schedules are release their schedule for the 2023 season tonight. Obviously, Brazilian soccer all the way at full force. So there's plenty to talk about. I'm Nick Hill, live as always from Chattanooga, Tennessee, the United States. And joining me from Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil is Gustavo Tomazeli. Gus, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. A little bit later, I was, doing some stuff, but I'm glad to have another episode on my Facebook, your Facebook, and my YouTube channel. Yeah, let's get started because we have a situation that again involves Brazil and US, and is gonna be, I think, it's gonna be developing larger and larger as we kind of professionalize we sports gambling in both countries, because with gambling there's a dark side of it, I feel like.
Oh, absolutely. And before we get dive head first, I just want to say we are recording this we're starting this podcast at the beginning of the fourth quarter of game six of the 76ers and Celtics. 76ers storm back to take a 2 point lead. If Philadelphia holds on this quarter, they win the series and advance to their first Eastern Conference Finals, and I believe a couple of decades at this point. So huge, huge fourth quarter. But we'll keep you
i
updated. We'll get into NBA a little bit.
I am 11:27.
I'm still in commercial break, so
I won't give spoil alerts.
okay. Now I'm at 11:27. No, I must have been behind. I must have rewound at some point to look at a highlight. Oh yeah, 73-71. I mean, definitely there's going to be a lot of narratives that come from this quarter about, Doc Rivers, James Harden, and Jason Tatum is too. Jason Tatum so far 1 of 13 in this game. I mean, if Boston ends up, losing this game, wow. That's just that'll I mean, for a guy that people debate whether or not he's a superstar, that type of performance is going to lean towards a no, especially with the possibility of Jalen Brown leaving this offseason. Right now, they just had it flash with the stat line here: 5 points, 6 assists, 3 turnovers, 1 of 13 for Jason Tatum, 73 all. But let's get into the main topic here that we wanted to really dive into, because there is several situations with sports gambling, as Gus mentioned at the top of the broadcast, and we're seeing issues both in America and Brazil. And it almost feels like all this kind of kicked off in the past week with what we saw down in Tuscaloosa. Uh, Alabama base Alabama's head baseball coach. Recently, they were playing a series against LSU, and for some reason, right before his name was Brad Bohannon. For some reason, right before their game on April 28th, he pulled his starting pitcher. Not injured or anything, just pulled him. They ended up losing that game 8-6. Then a Louisiana gambling official received a report that something fishy could have gone on. And what that report has suggested is potentially that this coach, Bohannon, was betting on games that his team was involved in. And that is certainly a big no-no in the sports world. In addition, on the college front, there's an investigation over 100 former athletes and other staffers at Iowa and Iowa State, in the state of Iowa, over betting in general, because in the NCAA rule book, you are not allowed to bet on any sport, whether it's amateur, college, or professional, if you are participating in NCAA competition in any way. So it's pretty fascinating when you look at those two cases. And then, Gus, kind of bring up the case that you brought up from Brazil.
Yeah, so here in Brazil there was what we call the police investigation called Operation Penalty, that started late last year and is still ongoing. It's in stage 3. So the investigation is sports gamblers and bookies were trying to connect with players. From now, the investigation only reach into the first and second division nationally, and players were asked to did minor violations like get a yellow card or even a red card, or even last year committed a penalty, because those kind of wages, the odds are higher. The odds of a player getting a yellow card is way higher than a team winning or losing, or the odds are of somebody committing a penalty in the first half is higher. So for now, there was around 15 to 20 players that were investigating. The main player that was caught in the scandal is Santos defender Eduardo Bowerman. There was WhatsApp messages surfaced that uh, he agreed to commit to get a yellow card in a game Santos versus Avaí on the week 36 or 37 on the Brazilian National League. He did not get the yellow card. So the gambler, the bookie was mad. Hey, I placed a bet and you didn't got your end of a deal. He got mad. He said, "Okay, I'll make it up in the next game." So like, okay, next game you get a red card. So then he got the red card, but he got after the game was over. So for the betting websites, does not count. So it made the situation worse because interfere with him on the field because he couldn't play in the next game, but he didn't feel his end of the deal in terms of the bet. So the guy started making threats because he lost twice money, in two consecutive games. And there was so much going on. According to a Brazilian journalist, Rica Perrone, there was probably 30 to 40 players. Some key players that were involved. There was a lot of investigation is still ongoing, but it's still a lot of people surface the idea of stop the Brazilian National League. I don't think it's gonna happen because um, there was no indication that any games from this year were changed. But a question is, does if there were these allegations comes even stronger and stronger, and you know change the outcome of a relegation of promotion, a team might be felt compelled to go to court to say, hey, I was, there was a, this happened to my team. I want my relegation to be nulled, or, I don't know, like the implications are, we don't know
I
how.
mean, I think the only way they would be able to know to really kind of remedy that is to kind of force whoever the egregious the aggressor in the situation to kind of pay the difference of what money they lost from being relegated.
Yeah, yeah, that's true, but it's hard to quantify that because like how can you quantify being on the first division comparing sponsorships and comparing TV deals? It's hard to kind of put a value on it. And also so you're gonna ask the players, the gamblers, like who you can come after financially. So that and of course it delegitimized the Brazilian soccer because it makes the trust of the game harder. you know and I wonder if this trend comes to America because like and you can tell better than I do. For example, in the NFL, can you make a bet of a player getting I don't know, like commit a penalty, or like how this work in terms of the football side of it, or even like other American sports?
Well, I mean, we call them prop bets. Now, I've never seen like penalties. I mean, I'm sure somewhere you can probably have like an over under on penalties. I mean, that would be called a prop bet. Normally, it's something like, will Patrick Mahomes throw for over 298.5 yards or something like that? Or you bet on this player to score the first touchdown, or bet on how the first touchdown will be scored, or bet on how many turnovers there will be.
But
Um,
But you couldn't, for example, like a defensive player, you can bet that he is gonna commit a penalty in the first quarter.
I'm sure somewhere you could. I've seen
That's
some
my issue because
I'm familiar
then
with his DraftKings,
because
and
then it,
on
because
there.
then we'll open a Pandora box. Because then if that because the main issue in Brazil here, a lot of players were trying to the scandal is more like I'm gonna commit things that is under my control, like a red card, a yellow card on a penalty is something I can control. Like I can go there and make a foul or make a harder foul or make a foul inside the penalty area.
Yeah, I've never seen that in American football. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't exist somewhere, and I'm sure there's some offshore sites where you probably could do that. But obviously I think stuff like that's probably not the best idea, right? Like you in order to if you're going to have the possibility of players in the game or coaches within a game, betting on themselves, you got to try to make it as hard as possible for them to be able to actually manipulate the game to win their bets. Like if you bet, Tennessee +3 against Georgia, then it needs to be really, really hard
I mean,
for.
I think the closest that this manipulation happened, I watched the documentary a couple of weeks ago, was the Arizona State basketball players. I think that was the closest that this kind of scandal happened in America. I believe
Let's see. I am not familiar with that
it's a
particular.
really cool documentary. It's a really cool documentary. I'm Arizona State
Benny
basketball.
Silman. He was sentenced to under 4 years in federal prison after pleading guilty to fixing Arizona State basketball games in exchange for money for gamblers. $568,000. Wow.
Yeah, there's a really cool Netflix documentary. There were two players, so I think they were like the two stars for Arizona State basketball team. They were asked by this gentleman, Benny Silman, to
Okay.
bet the under.
Yeah, so they were point shaving. I see what
Yeah,
they're.
point shaving.
Yes, they're. I saw they did it in the game against Oregon State. Man, that's insane. Yeah, but and you're probably going to see stuff like that happen again. Now, the thing with gambling being legalized now, and it's legal now in 33 states out of 50. It's not legal in every state yet in America. Um, the good thing about that is you're taking away these loan sharks because when you bet on like DraftKings or bet MGM, you're not going through a loan shark. When you bet, you bet. And that money's gone unless you win it back. Because these people, back in the grand old days of gambling, you'd have to go to someone, you have to say, all right, I bet this amount of money on this thing, but you didn't have to necessarily give it to them at that moment. But if you didn't give it to them, at a reasonable amount of time, they'd come and do bad things to you.
Yeah,
So
like here in Brazil here too. Like it was, here the Brazilian journalist I really watched, Rica Perrone, was talking about in Rio that it's a fever kind of that. Like the people walking with little notebooks, kind of getting money from people.
yeah, so in a way, I mean, because think about it. I mean, betting, gambling, you can do it from anywhere. Like I could sit here and bet right now on this. I could sit here and bet right now on this phone. I could bet the end of this game right now. It's 81-81 halfway through the fourth quarter. I could bet that 76ers are going to win on the money line in 2 seconds. And I guess there's broader application whether or not that's good or not for society. Because I watched a video a while back about Australia and how there's a lot of people with gambling addiction there. Because they've had sports gambling there for a very long time. And people are worried that you're going to see a similar thing in the United States.
And in Brazil too, because Brazil is weird. Betting, like betting websites cannot be hosted in Brazil, but they're not illegal to promote themselves in Brazil. So the betting websites are like, being like sponsor sponsoring everything here in Brazil, but they're hosted not in Brazil. It's like Betano.io or .com or like, but they're not .com but .br.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This whole thing, I guess leagues are going to have to really decide, okay, these are your strict rules and these are not your strict rules. Because I know, like in the case of like Jameson Williams, for example, he was suspended over betting inside an NFL training facility on non-NFL games. To me, I think that's a little far. Now, there were some other people involved in that scandal that did bet on NFL related games. I think obviously that's completely unacceptable. But if you're sitting in an NFL locker room and you're betting on like the NBA, I mean, I don't think that should necessarily be against the rules, especially when you have the NFL, the NBA, and all of these other major sports leagues doing advertisements with these major companies like DraftKings and BetMGM. Like that's just hypocritical. Like you're going to promote these products, but not let your players bet on other sports and other events. They're not your sport. Obviously, you can't have them bet on your own sport. And I think in the case of like the NCAA, that rule is incredibly draconian because, yeah, obviously you don't want Iowa players to bet on an Iowa State game or any other Big 10 or Big 12 game. But what if they want to bet the NFL? What if they want to bet the NHL? Like they don't have any say over that game.
But
I think
couldn't they get a third? Couldn't they get a third party to do it for them?
they could, but then when you start looking at statements, and you're going to get all other kinds of questions. Okay, so where are all these random Venmos coming from? Where are the random PayPal payments coming from? Unless you want to really do it secretive, and then you're going to just make it look like you're doing a crime instead of just sports gambling, which in Iowa is legal. And I believe in the Alabama case, he did it while he was in Louisiana, where it was legal there. But I don't believe it's legal in Alabama. I know it's not legal in Georgia. Just off a matter of hand, just covering news here and at the tri-point of Tennessee, Georgia, and Alabama.
Yeah, like and in Brazil is even more ridiculous because apparently, so here in Brazil we have the system called PIX, which is it's like a PayPal or Venmo, but it's from bank account to bank account. There's no third party. There's no companies. It's like bank to bank, electronic money system. Like you can,
Right.
like for if I want to send the money right now to my friend's bank account, I don't need a third party. But allegedly some players were giving PIX codes from their own bank accounts to get money to fix games. Which is really stupid. You're
About to say that they're going to have a record of that. And I
yeah.
understand that. So, like, okay, so I'm assuming not everyone in Brazil is on the same bank, right? That's a little.
No, yeah, there are really
So,
many, many banks.
okay, so like, I'm trying to think. 'Cause, like I'm not going to divulge what bank I'm at, but let's say my bank is trying to get in touch with, let's say, Bank of America, which is not my bank. Like, I mean, you have to go through all kinds of stuff to transfer that money. Uh,
No. In Brazil, it's become really simple. Like to transfer money in Brazil, you only need an email. Like if I need money right now to be transferred to my account, I just need to give my email because my email is the code for the PIX system. So they can put my email, they'll find my bank account, and they send the money right away in seconds. Like that's the system that we have here.
Yeah, but definitely true. But definitely, if you're, kind of wiring money that's made in a kind of an illegal manner, that's not. That doesn't sound like a very secure way to hide. Uh,
It's very obvious. And I mean, if I was a player doing that, I was trying to get a PIX code from like a third party, like not a like a like a we call here an orange person. We call here like a guy, somebody like an offshore bank account or like a ghost company. We call those terms, but and it's scary because if this is happening in the first division and the second division nationally, how about like for example the championship that I'm covering, the fourth division in the state of Sao Paulo, where players make minimum wage when they get paid, and the games are broadcast, but not really. How about the fourth division nationally, where the games are not being broadcast in matters of image? Like the Brazilian Confederation did not allow clubs to broadcast their own games. Only radio stations showing the booth are allowed. So if the games are not being shown, what kind of things are happening behind the scenes in fourth division, in the in the fourth division, the Brazilian league, or even the fourth division in the state of São Paulo league, for example, where there's not much coverage?
Yeah, too. And when you don't have TV coverage of those games, then it's a lot easier to fix those games because, like, think about when you have an NFL game, movies, a lot of money is moving every single play because people are reacting to whatever's happening in the game. But in a game like that, you might be the only one who's reacting and moving the money around. So that's an easy game to really kind of fix in your favor in terms of gambling. So. And I think about like in terms of smaller games. Like I remember when I went and visited Jason up in Clarksville, went to Queens, Austin P, and obviously being in Tennessee, you could place a wager right there on the sideline. I was really standing on the court, placing a wager on a game. Obviously, I wasn't affiliated with APSU; I was just there as a spectator. But it's kind of crazy that you're able just to stand like 5 feet away from the action and like within earshot of those players and place a wager on that game. You know, I mean, and what's stopping any spectator from going up to a player, especially at a smaller school like that, like, hey, I've got this and this and this. Can you help me out here? You know,
And there's a precedent, in the night. I mean, we just, if that happened in Arizona State in the 1990s, like, what makes you think that that did not happen again?
you gotta feel like it's had to have happened at some point. Again, we see stupid stuff all the time. Like, I mean, I think about like J.R. Smith in Game 1 of the 2018 NBA Finals, not taking a shot at the end. I'm not saying that's gambling, but if you're trying to fix a game, I would see someone trying to do something like that.
It's so funny. There's a Twitter page in Brazil. They created a Twitter page like, it's not fixing games. They're just bad players, and they show highlights of a really terrible soccer action. Making jokes of like what it kind of described, like things they think are so bad in terms of sports action. They're like, this got to be fixed. But I think fixing is more like, for example, in Brazil, like how many corner kicks can you get? Red, yellow card, stuff like that. It's under the player's control, and it's not change directly the outcome of the game, like scoring an own goal or missing a, like I think I don't know how much, because last year, like we talk about lower leagues, a team that was one of the worst teams in the Brazilian, in the Paulista fourth division, players were kind of getting calls to get makes bets on corner kicks, getting like a higher amount of corner kicks to bet the over. So, and we as we both sports journalists, and we trust the sports as an institution that players want to win, not fix games. We sad to see that.
Yeah, 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 and yeah, I think we all have to be more conscious and kind of just more watchful in terms of what happens, and if we see weird stuff, then you have to ask yourself, was there any fixing involved? Like like I heard a story earlier from Tom Hart, who was on a podcast, I forget which one it was, talking about the end of the 2021 Tennessee Purdue game, in the Music City Bowl, and talking about how that ending, the replay official came up to him afterwards and said, "Hey, we demonstrated our power there. We made people think that we could review that, but we didn't. But we weren't able to." And it's just kind of insane that the replay official kind of took out of a power trip there and basically screwed over an entire team. And gambling was already legal by that point in Tennessee. Like, I'm not saying he was gambling on the game, but what if he was? What if he had money on Purdue? I mean, to not call an obvious touchdown in that scenario.
I mean, and it definitely have flashbacks in both Brazilian and American sports. Like, we talk referee fixing games for gambling. In Brazil there was a 2005 uh, referee gambling scandal where two referees were fixing games in the first division of the Brazilian league, and the fixing was so bad that the Brazilian Confederation had to scratch 11 games and redo those games, and that made Corinthians went from third place to first place and got the title. So that was made even sketchier, but they had to do it because of the investigation that was kind of say, hey, this referee, they were they working on those games that he said he's trying to fix those games, and some of the games he even couldn't fix the way he wanted, but still though he act on it. So the legitimacy of the game was compromised.
Yeah, and I think as we move into this new era of sports gambling being kind of just normalized, we're just gonna have to really remain vigilant, and hopefully we'll be able to strike a good balance between allowing it to exist and keeping the integrity of the sport,
Yeah.
and kind of imbalancing all the other negative aspects of it that you can get. So,
Isn't there were like an NBA scandal in terms of referee and betting?
well, I mean, 2002.
Yeah.
So, it's, and who's to say that that hasn't happened since? So, yeah, certainly it's interesting. And now this podcast is brought to you by DraftKings. I'm just kidding. It's
Uh, I,
imagine we were, and like we just kind
I,
of,
I was like, hey, where's my check?
yeah, yeah. Do
Eh,
please sponsor us.
yeah, please. Oh, Betano or Pitaco. Like in Brazil, there's so many. I lost track of how many, you know, uh, gambling websites there are. I haven't created account on any because I'm still skeptical of it, but there's some, and they sponsor their sponsorships everywhere in sports now here in Brazil, at least.
Absolutely. 3 minutes left. Boston is up by 4.
The
So
game is heated. There were some even controversial calls. Doc Rivers were like mad.
I wonder if Doc Rivers. There's plenty of games where I think Doc Rivers is thrown, but I don't think it was gambling. I just think they've been coaching mistakes. I mean, this is a game Philadelphia really, really needs right here. And I guess while we're transitioning out of gambling, let's go over to NBA because we have 4 series in the conference semifinals. They're all 3-2. We don't have any series that's done yet. Now, if Philadelphia can somehow pull this out, they'd be the first team to advance to the Eastern Conference Finals. They were down 2-1 in this series. James Harden hit a game winner in game 4. And an incredible performance. And then game 5, they went up to the TD Garden and stunned the Celtics. Just really had an amazing game 5. But now they've kind of struggled tonight. They were down for most of the game, came back, took the lead in the third quarter. Jason Tatum, though, has warmed up. He scored the last 8 points. He was 1 of 13 heading into this fourth quarter. And now the Celtics are okay. Marcus Smart just scored 89-84 here with 2.5 minutes ago.
I'm a little in front of you. Like I mean, I'm impressed by James Harden. Kind of, he's like getting the ball. He's being the leader of this team. I know he's not the trustworthy guy in the playoffs, but from what I see, he's kind of taking the lead of his Philadelphia team at least, and for now. And
That's
that
pretty
was
interesting because, I mean, he has the literal MVP on his team and Joel Embiid. So, it's kind of interesting that he's getting the ball. But I mean, as I said, he's had an amazing series, at least in some of the games. Now, the games 2 and 3, complete no-show. He did not play well another one of those games. So it's been very much a case of when he shows up, Philadelphia's been great. And also Tyrese Maxey as well. Tyrese Maxey has been great at times in this series as well. of course, Joel Embiid is Embiid. Like, you can rely on him to do really, really well.
I,
But
I
I
mean,
think
I think this MVP by Joel Embiid. Do you think they took the pressure off James Harden?
I don't know if I'd say that because I think all the pressure is still on James Harden, especially right now. He only scored 13 tonight, um, especially in this scenario. Because here's the thing: if you're Philadelphia, you've got to find a way to win it to get back. You got to find a way to win now. You got to win tonight. You do not want to go back to Boston on Saturday for Game 7. I don't think that's going to end well for them if they do have to go back to Boston, especially knowing their history, especially Doc Rivers' history. I think this would just be a brutal, brutal loss for Philly if they can't pull it out tonight. And it's going to be tough with 2-11. They've got a 5-point deficit.
It's funny now that the referees they kind of like the NFL. They have to announce their call.
Yeah, and it makes the end of these games so freaking long, but it's so dramatic. And obviously, I've got the game on mute here. I can only imagine what that Philly crowd sounds like right now, because I mean, that's just a tense crowd. And as we talked about, we talked about the Super Bowl. Philadelphia has had a lot of really good teams recently. They've all come up really, really short, right? You had the Philadelphia Union come up short in MLS. You had the Phillies lose in the World Series. The Eagles lose in the Super Bowl. And for the 76ers, they're trying to be the team to get Philly over the hump here for the first time since 2017.
And there's so many storylines on the 76ers. Can the MVP Joel Embiid makes this team? Oh my! How no?
What in the that? Why was that the shot there?
Mine is like a 3-point shot.
Wait, Embiid is you have Embiid on the court, and wow. So much for talking crap about Jason Tatum, because he is silencing South Philly right now. 11 here the last 4 minutes for the Celtics. James Harden misses a layup. Yeah, you might want to start getting those tickets back ready for Boston for Game 7, because it's looking like we're going back to Boston.
And what a shot by Jason Tatum. I mean, he was doubted all series, and when the moment they needed the most, he was there. And do you think, and in terms of storylines, Boston and the TG Garden experienced one of the most one of the most biggest upsets in sports in 2023 in America, with the Boston Bruins being the best team in the regular season, being eliminated by the Florida Panthers.
I almost feel like if I were Boston, I'd rather Game 7 be in Philly.
Yeah.
Because all the pressure in the world is, both of these teams, whoever loses this game, are probably going to be subject to significant changes in the offseason. This is going to be a pressure-filled, packed Game 7, especially when you consider that your companion series is the Heat and the Knicks. Whoever wins this series is going to be favored to move on to the NBA Finals. So, for all intents and purposes, this might as well be the Eastern Conference Finals. It kind of reminds me a lot of the series of 2 years ago, the Bucks Nets series.
Yeah.
I could see that coming down to a very similar ending in Boston on Saturday. We don't get a miracle. But for the 76ers here, we're 1:30 left in the game. In the first 10 and a half minutes, they've only scored 11 points in this quarter. And that's what you've seen. Just they're not getting the ball to their playmakers. They're not getting the ball to Embiid. Embiid literally is the MVP. Why is he not getting the ball here in the fourth quarter?
Oh my God, James Harden, come on. Oh my God. I'm not gonna spoil for you. James Harden tried to attack the perimeter. Joel Embiid was free on the 3-point line, and he didn't pass to Embiid. Oh my God.
Uh, I just saw that. What is he doing, man?
Like,
This is why I can't pick the Philadelphia 76ers and James Harden to succeed in the playoffs, because I know they're going to do this stuff. You know that when push comes to shove, you can't trust them. I'm sorry, the narrative exists because it's true.
yeah. And like Boston is dominating rebounding.
I mean, at 4 of 19 this quarter, as we have a minute left for the 76ers. I
Oh,
mean,
now it's over. Now it's over. Oh my
oh,
God.
man. Wow. And how do you let that offensive rebound? I mean, especially in that case, and they've just given up on defense. I mean, there's going to be some angry fans. I wonder if they'll riot in Philly tonight. I mean,
They
Jason
blew,
trying to stare down the entire city is hilarious.
they
Considering
blew it.
that, what a joke by Philly, man. What a joke. Man, that's brutal loss for the Sixers. Honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if we had if they if that sends the the Celtics to the Eastern Conference Finals. Like if they, I think Celtics will come back and win Game 7 now. The Sixers needed to win tonight. They needed that so bad, but they didn't get it.
It reminds me a lot of, and James Harden was in the same situation, Game 6, Houston Golden State, I believe it was 2017.
Yep, exactly. I think it was 2016, right? Because they had a 3-1 lead.
Yeah.
And Golden State won on the road and won. Actually, no, they had 2 chances at home. They had 2 chances at home, and they couldn't win either one, including the whole missing 27 straight 3-pointers. So, as I said, James Harden and Chokin, they go hand in hand together. Also, too, I just flipped it back over on the Stanley Cup side. New Jersey and Carolina in overtime tied at 2. If Carolina scores, they move on to the Eastern Conference Finals in hockey. Just for that. But in other NBA playoffs, the next game up tonight, we have Nuggets at Suns. And this has been just an insane series. Like Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Nikola Jokic have all been unbelievable in this series. I was watching I think it was game 3 or game 4 on Sunday. And the second half of that game was some of the cleanest offensive basketball I've ever watched. It was unbelievable. I mean, this series has just been unreal. Suns are at home tonight. If they can win at home, they will go back to Denver for a game 7. I think the Suns will win tonight. I think Booker and KD at home have been great. And I gotta see that killer instinct from Denver. Again, it's kind of like Philly. Like I wanted to see a killer instinct from Philly tonight, and they just didn't have it. And I still have my doubts if Denver has it, even though they're the 1 seed. So I want to see if Nikola Jokic can lead his team into Phoenix and end this thing tonight. Because remember, Dallas last year in Game 7 on the road in Phoenix just walked all over the Suns. They were up by like 50 at one point in that game. I don't expect the Nuggets to go in there and do that, especially now with Kevin Durant on the Suns. But that'll be an interesting game.
I feel like, in Denver has I feel like they have more pressure on their shoulders, especially the duo. I know Chris Paul isn't, not available, but Kevin Durant definitely was brought up to get a championship. But the last time he was brought up to a team, it didn't work. So and Denver is the kind of young, exciting team with Jokic, playing kind of like MVP level, even though he didn't win the MVP. It makes it an unbelievable series that I feel like is overshadowed because of, Lakers and the Warriors and Celtics and 76ers has more like flashy star players.
Absolutely. Also, just in breaking news, Carolina did score in overtime. So the Hurricanes are moving on to the Eastern Conference Finals. They win in 5 over the Devils. Did not see that coming. I think I had actually the Devils in the opposite in 5. So congratulations to the Carolina Hurricanes in the Stanley Cup. But yeah, but Nuggets Suns will be beginning here shortly on ESPN in the US, and I'm not sure what it's on in Brazil.
No, I was trying to listen to Jason Tatum's interview, and he will say like, "I'm committed. I want to play with the best," and he looks energetic. So I feel like it's definitely a major asset for this Boston team.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, of all the discussion about him and Jaylen Brown not getting along anymore, not being able to coexist, the idea that Jaylen Brown being his own guy somewhere else. I saw some discussion online earlier that Jaylen Brown actually is the better player, not Jason Tatum. And it's really interesting because, you don't think of necessarily Jason Tatum as a superstar, quote unquote, but that was a really gutsy performance there down the stretch by Jason Tatum. I mean, he was awful all night, but to gut it out on the road in the fourth quarter, that's what legends are made of. That's what you have to do in those spots. So huge kudos to him for being able to pull it out.
Yeah, and I still believe on my New York Knicks. I know they're down 3-2, but I mean, I feel like the Knicks is gonna win. I think the Knicks is gonna advance to the Eastern Conference Finals, and New York deserves that. New York truly deserves the Knicks to be good.
Ooh, so you have them coming all the way back from 3-1.
Yes.
Wow. I mean, that's, Miami host Game 6 tomorrow. And, it was a tight game last night, but the Knicks were able to pull it out. I don't know. I think the Heat have been playing better. I really think Miami will close it out tomorrow and become, I think, the first 8 seed, I think maybe ever to make a conference finals.
No, the Knicks did in 2000.
Okay, yeah, so it'll be the first team since then to do it, if they do it.
Yeah, I think the Knicks 1999 2000 went all the way to the NBA Finals, I believe, and they lost to the Spurs.
Yeah, that was their first championship with the Twin Towers.
Yes, yes. And
So,
and then Knicks were the 8th seed, and Miami were the higher seed.
yeah, so I mean, this would be kind of karma reverse if the Heat can pull it off. Final stat line for Harden: 4 of 16, 0 of 6 on threes. I mean, this guy he can't hit threes in big games. Remember when he went to the strip club and then the next day he came out Game 6 against San Antonio and scored like 6 points? I think this was like 2015. It was a conference semifinals. I mean, it's just year after year after year, you know what's going to happen with James Harden. That's all I got to say. But I'm picking the Heat tomorrow.
He's a talented basketball player, but he does not have the it. The I don't know what it is, but you know what I'm saying, like the it to be a star in the playoffs.
Right. He's kind of like Phillip Rivers.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of like the Phillip Rivers of basketball. Puts up great stats, or Kirk Cousins, if you're going to make that comparison.
Yeah, perfect. Kirk Cousins and James Harden. Like you can rely on that on the regular season, but when it comes playoffs, like can't trust.
Yeah, I know James Harden just hit a game winner in Game 4, but that wasn't in an elimination game. I need to see him do something like Kyrie, like shooting in Steph's face in Game 7 in 2016. I know that guy can ball in big moments. I know KD can ball in big moments. I know obviously LeBron can ball in big moments. I have not seen that from James Harden at all. And speaking of LeBron and Curry, so the Lakers, the Los Angeles Lakers, man, what a homestand they had. They was tied 1-1. They come back. They win both games in it's Crypto.com arena. It's always going to be the Staples Center to me. And they get And they were down the entire game in game 5. They tried to rally up points, but it just never came to fruition for them to win in San Francisco. So I almost think they're almost in a similar position tomorrow night that Philly was tonight. Well, I mean, obviously, your free two is free two, but in a similar position that you don't want to go back to San Francisco for Game 7. Like, I feel like you have to do anything in your power to win in LA tomorrow night.
Oh, definitely. They have to close this series at home. I feel like whatever the outcome of this playoffs, I think LeBron, if I was LeBron, I would leave regardless of title or not. I think, I feel like I'll leave on a higher note. And if I don't think this Laker roster with him can achieve, success. Not saying LeBron couldn't produce. I think he still have 1 or 2 or even 3 years, of basketball. But if I was the Lakers, I would have tried to trade him, let's say for some like to Cleveland. Cleveland has like young, talented players, like to kind of like rebuild around Anthony Davis.
See, I don't think he's going to leave if for anything else than his son just committed to USC. So I think he's going to stay in LA no matter what. If basketball weren't in the cards, I think he would just retire and focus on doing film, on doing production, and being there for his son as he starts his own basketball career. Because I know, like for LeBron, think about it, he didn't have his father growing up, so that's like I know that's a point. Just looking at interviews and stuff, that's a point of pride for him to be there for Bronny, and especially as he starts his own career at the University of Southern California. So I think LA is going to have LeBron for as long as he wants to be there. I mean, that's no one's ever bust. He's LeBron James. He's one of the greatest players of all time. And frankly, he's still playing well. I mean, he has 25 points and 9 rebounds in Game 5. I mean, he's been really good throughout the series. The real X factor, no shocker, is Anthony Davis. I mean, when Anthony Davis is on, they've won, and when he hasn't been on, they haven't had success. And I think if you're the Warriors, you're going to have to find a way to really spread out this team. And you got to really hope that Game 6 Klay Thompson shows up tomorrow night. Because Klay Thompson, has a history of showing up in Game 6. It's like I remember when he went to Oklahoma City in 2016 in those finals. And I believe he had 40 points on the road in OKC to get them back home to a 7. Because, that was the last time Golden State came back from a 3-1 was in that series. Of course, right before they let up a 3-1 lead of their own back to the Cavs. But I think people forget because of that choke, they came back from a 3-1 of their own the series right before that. And there's a stat where Steve Kerr, since he's taken over as Golden State's coach, has never lost a Western Conference series. I'm going to be honest. I think the Warriors find a way to pull it off tomorrow night and force it to Game 7. I think that will come down to the wire.
I think the Lakers close out the series. Going to be 4-2. But I think the Suns are going to beat the Lakers in the Western Conference Final. For me, NBA Finals are going to be Knicks and the Suns.
Ooh. I'm going to be honest. I would probably pick the Suns in 5 or to even sweep in that scenario. I think from this point, I think the Suns find a way to win in 7. I like the Warriors to win in 7. I think both teams who are down right now come back. So it'd be Suns Warriors in the West. I like the Heat to win in 6. I like the Celtics now to win in 7. I think you're going to get Celtics, and I think you're going to get the Suns. And I like the Suns in 5.
So you're saying the Warriors are going to lose their first ever Western Conference Finals under Steve Kerr.
Yeah, I have the Suns in 6 over the Warriors. So that's how I feel as of right now at 10:17 p.m. Eastern time. Before the Game 6 of the Nuggets and Suns, right as it's tipping off here. Of course, that could change in 3 hours if the Nuggets find a way to win on the road in Phoenix. And that, to me, if Denver wins tonight, then they would become my new championship pick, because then they would have proved to me that this team means business.
It's not only a regular season; it's playoffs too.
Yeah,
Because we know Denver can be a really good regular season team. We don't know if it can be good in the postseason.
yes, and that's what we have to see. That's absolutely what we.
Whoa! And 3-2. What a 3-point shot by uh, Kevin Durant.
Yeah, so it just tipped off for me here. So we are now firmly. Of course, I'll be honest. I've been waking up really early this week because I just got back on a normal Monday through Friday. So I've been waking up at 6 a.m. every day to go to the gym. So I've honestly been missing a lot of these West Coast games. I've been having to watch the highlights in the morning. But hey, it's going to be a fun one. I may say I have to watch this one. So shifting real fast just to kind of catch up on that Stanley Cup. Of course, the Hurricanes are the first team to punch their ticket to the conference finals. They won 3-2 tonight over New Jersey. They won that in 5. Also in the East, which has been a shocking series to me so far, the Toronto Maple Leafs. I thought you had gotten over your curse, man. You won your first playoff series in 19 years, and then you go down 3-0 to the Florida Panthers.
I mean, what a. I mean, I guess the Florida Panthers are, embrace the state of Florida hockey spirit that was, mostly on the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah, I mean, you get this sometimes in Stanley Cup. You just get a team of destiny, like the Predators a couple of years ago. It's this feels like just a team of destiny right now. They got to go back to Toronto. I think Toronto is going to win Game 5 and forces back to Game 6. I think Florida's going to win in 6, and I can't believe I'm saying that, but this one, if you're Toronto, would have to hurt even more than any of the first round exits, because you finally get a first round win just to lose to the last place team in the playoffs. I mean, that's just got to just really hurt.
But what a storyline by Florida. They take down the best team in the regular season, the historical Boston Bruins, and then they eliminated Toronto, which was also got over the hump.
I know that just unbelievable if you're the Florida Panthers to be in that spot. But we'll see if Toronto can pull off a miracle comeback. And if Toronto can pull off the miracle comeback, then maybe they themselves are on the team of destiny. Now, I think the best series out of these 4 is Edmonton and Vegas. I mean, this has been an incredible series so far, 2-2 back and forth. They go back to Vegas tomorrow night for Game 5. I don't know how this thing's going to finish out. I think they will split their next 2 games. We're going to get a Game 7 in Vegas, and all bets are off. And you just got to wonder, can the superstar and Connor McDavid will the Edmonton Oilers over the finish line and get them to the Western Conference Finals? The game that's going on right now is in Dallas. Seattle Kraken, which, by the way, shout out to Seattle. They've been really good in this postseason. Very competitive. They are tied 2-2 heading into tonight with Dallas, but Dallas is up 2-0 right now on the Kraken. I think Dallas will ultimately win this thing in 6. I just think they have a lot more playoff experience. But hey, Seattle is getting a lot of valuable experience. They've won a playoff series against the Avalanche. I think you have nothing to be ashamed of in Seattle if they end up losing this series.
Yeah, and it's funny. Like I was thinking about, Carolina really decimated the New York, New Jersey area. They eliminated the Islanders and the New Jersey Devils. They are, eliminating the dreams of New Yorkers.
I said they might be the most complete team out there. I mean, honestly, they are the team that's going to eventually hoist the cup.
My prediction, I think, is going to be the Florida Panthers, and I think Edmonton is going to make to the NHL Stanley Cup Finals. And
I'm going to go with Florida. Actually, no, I'm going to go with Carolina and Dallas. I'm going to go Carolina and Dallas, and I think Carolina wins that in 6. That's my current prediction as of right now, subject to change. But in either case, Carolina Dallas, that's a Southern Stanley Cup final. That's not very Canadian. So, or what if we get Florida Vegas?
The two states that are really like heat weather, in the ice sport.
Yeah, I mean, talk about the ultimate insult to the traditionalist that want to see a Stanley Cup Canadian final. Of course, granted, I want to see an all Canadian final, but I don't. It's starting to look. It's looking very unlikely at this point, unless we get some miracles to occur.
Especially in the Toronto series.
Yeah, but we'll see if the six can rally. But anyway, it's NFL schedule release night. And obviously, there's 272 games. We're not going to go over all of them today, obviously. But I don't really know where to even start with the schedule release. Obviously, I look at the.
Do you want to start with the? I was gonna say, do you want to start with the Titans?
Yeah. Let's go over the Titans here because I've looked at it. Actually, the schedule predictor website. I'm actually working through it now. I'm at week 6. That'll take some time for me to go through and pick every game and figure out what that looks like.
So, week 1, I think was the best week 1 ever. At the Chicago Bears because I know that's the preseason. Sorry.
Yeah,
yeah, my bad. So week 1 is at the Saints. I mean, I think there's gonna be excitement. It's the first game with Derek Carr as a quarterback. But I still think that you can. I think it's manageable. I think it's a winnable game.
It certainly is winnable, and the Saints will have to see exactly how the receiving core comes together. As you said, they got Derek Carr. He's going to be their QB. Their backfield, I think, will be the strength because obviously you got Alvin Kamara, but you also have Jamal Williams from the Lions, who's come over. And the Superdome, that place is always rocking, and I think they're really excited about the Saints this year. And I'll just say this as a common theme. I know maybe in the last couple of episodes, I was very, very negative on the Titans, particularly in the last one, particularly with the Will Levis pick and all that. But in terms of how that actually affects the team this year, I don't think that has much of an effect outside of the fact that our receiving core is just complete, there's non-existent, basically. I don't know who Ryan Tannehill is going to throw to outside of Traylon Burks and this Tajay Sharp guy that doesn't have have an ACL, or Tajay Spears, my bad. I think here, because here's the thing, this feels like the type of game the Titans would win. And the last time they went to Louisiana, they did win. They won in overtime. But I do have to give this one to the Saints. But I think it would be like a touchdown or so. I don't think it would be a blowout.
Yeah, I mean, it's as you said. I know Titans fans are heading to a season that are not excited, but let's pick real quick. Like, no, because if we go and analyze game by game, it's gonna take all night. So,
yeah. I'll just give you one.
What?
I'll just give you win and loss.
Yeah. Chargers, loss. At the Browns, loss but close.
Loss.
It's gonna be a 3 to 6-point game. Loss. Bengals win but close.
Loss.
Echoes loss.
Win.
Baltimore Ravens London series in the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Loss.
Win.
Versus the Falcons. Win. At the Steelers.
Loss.
But close. At Tampa Bay Buccaneers, win.
Win.
Uh, at Jacksonville Jaguars, lost but close. Nick,
Oh yeah, yeah. I said loss. Loss.
I lost. Uh, Carolina at Nashville,
Win.
win. Colts in Tennessee,
Win.
win. At the Dolphins, loss.
Loss.
Texans win, but it's going to be close.
Win. Yeah.
Seattle Seahawks, loss.
Win.
At Texans,
Loss.
loss. In last game of last game of the regular season, I believe is going to be in all right, kind of like I think it's like between like January 6th and January 7th of 2024. Loss.
You know, I could see win there. Particularly if Jacksonville's like resting or something because they've won a division.
That's true.
I totally lost track of what that record was. I feel like because when I was doing it earlier, I got like 8-9.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be 8-9, 7-10, something like that.
I mean, there could be a scenario where they win some really tight games and they get themselves to 9 or 8 or 10 or 7. But there's also a scenario where they just don't win any close games and you finish like 5-12. So, you know, it's going to be fascinating. You know, and I'll explain some of the picks just real quick. I know I picked us to sweep the Colts, and I think that's more to do with the fact that they're going to be starting Anthony Richardson, and that concerns me for them. And that I trust, CJ Stroud as a quarterback for the Texans more in that. And obviously, I expect Jacksonville to win the division. But, we have plenty of time to get into the schedule, and obviously, we'll be picking week by week when we get to the season. In terms of just other marquee games, Aaron Rodgers' debut is going to be on Monday Night Football against the Bills. Kind of doing the exact same thing that we got with Russell Wilson last year in Denver. He hosted Seattle in week 1.
But the main difference is he is playing Josh Allen, not Jordan Love.
Correct. And I think that's not going to end well for the Jets.
Yeah, I didn't like the opening game, like Lions and Chiefs.
Oh, I love it because the Detroit Lions were one of the most fun teams to watch in the entire league last year. And there's a slight possibility we get to see Hendon Hooker. No, probably not. But
I like the opening game for the storylines. I always like a rematch of last year's Super Bowl, or I feel like it should have been Chiefs and Bengals. The most exciting game should have been an opening game.
Yeah, it's crazy because the Eagles literally do go to the Chiefs.
Yeah,
the Eagles face the Chiefs on November the 20th. Now, I don't know if that's in Philly or if that's in, I think that's in KC. Let's see. Eagles.
So another interesting matchup. So rematch of Dallas 49ers in week 5. Oh, it's going to be in Arrowhead Stadium, week 11. Eagles and Chiefs.
Yeah,
week 11.
So why is that not week 1? That makes no sense.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
Yeah, like that should have been week 1, no question. But what do we know? But I think the Lions are going to be a super hyped up team this year.
No, I'm not saying the Lions are not going to be. I think the Lions are going to be the most improved team this season. I think their ceiling's higher than last year. I just feel like opening games should be like for example, last year, Denver versus Seattle. There was a Russell Wilson storyline, right? The opening game could even be Jets and Packers. Aaron Rodgers coming back to Wisconsin.
Right. I don't know. Do they play this year? I don't know if they play this year. So it's just it's super fascinating to see how they choose some of these games. Um,
Oh, how about let's see analyze primetime games because last year was like so Thursday night football we got Vikings at Eagles, kind of interesting. Giants and 49ers, nice.
yeah, it's
Uh,
interesting. Lions at Packers.
Lions, eh, okay. I mean, without it's going to be an interesting matchup because now let's see how the Packers do without Aaron Rodgers facing their rivals. Week 5, Bears at the Washington Commanders. Then week
That was the
6,
worst game ever last year. Why is this on prime time again?
I don't know. I guess I have to put the Bears somewhere in the prime time, and I guess the Commanders are always going to be with them.
I will say
Bron-
it will be better though, in my opinion.
Broncos and Chiefs are going to be interesting matchups. I think with Russell Wilson and Sean Payton. I think the Broncos are going to be significantly better, so this makes it an interesting Thursday night football. Jaguars at Saints. I don't know. Buccaneers at Bills, okay-ish. I mean, without Tom Brady, the Bucks are going to be on tanking mode. Titans at Steelers. We already talked about this. I think the Steelers are going to win. Bears again hosting the Panthers. Oh my God, I think that's going to be a.
See Bryce Young in prime time at least, so we'll see what he looks like.
Then, Bengals and Ravens going to be fun with that was going to be a good Thursday night football. Then the Friday night football, Christmas Eve, Dolphins at Jets.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is Black Friday.
Black Friday.
I just didn't make my piece on this. I hate this a lot because Black Friday is for college football. It shouldn't be an NFL day. But NFL is just determined to take over every day, apparently.
Yeah, the NFL says screw college football, screw NBA. We're coming for your dates. We don't care anymore. Yeah. We don't care about traditions. The NFL is like, we are taking over.
And NFL is basically going to do whatever they want. They are the most popular sport in America for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, they're the king for a reason. Then they're going to let anybody stop them. Then Seattle Seahawks at Cowboys. I mean, the Cowboys got to be on prime time on Thursday.
6 times this year that they're on prime time.
Oh, what a shocker.
Yeah.
And Patriots and Steelers, Chargers and Raiders, Saints and Rams, and the last one, Jets at Browns. I think the best Thursday night football definitely is Bengals and Ravens.
Yeah, but hey, Jets and Browns, talk about a battle of problematic quarterbacks, though.
Yeah.
You got Aaron Rodgers and Deshaun Watson on the same field. The toxicity. Just ruminating from that.
It's going to be high. So going over Sunday Night Football, of course, the opening game is on Thursday, but it's kind of like it's true. I think still NBC their game.
Yep, these are on it.
So, but starting with the real Sunday Night Football, which is September 10. Of course, Giants and Cowboys. This is that matchup is like a tradition. Dolphins and Patriots. I think this is interesting because I think the Patriots are doing some sort of homage to Tom Brady on their first home game.
I think they host Philadelphia week 1, so they're going to do it. Back. But then again, as I said, why aren't the Eagles at the Kansas City week 1? And then you could have like Miami, New England be week 1. So like Tom Brady's getting honored versus a divisional opponent instead of the Eagles, a team that he lost to.
Yeah, that's why it's weird. It's like, why you're honoring Tom Brady with a team that literally beat him on the Super Bowl? Like, you should have did this, with the Rams or the Panthers or the Falcons.
He did beat the Eagles back in 2004, so he's 1-1.
Yeah, that's fair.
But still, in more recent times, he did lose to him. So,
week 3, Steelers and Raiders. This is like a prime time because it's two big brands.
Yeah.
Week 4, Patrick Mahomes versus Aaron Rodgers in New York.
I mean, that'll be big ratings right there,
Cowboys 49ers, two big brands in Santa Clara. Giants and Bills in week 6.
I am getting worried how much Giants I'm seeing here because they have the potential to be one of those teams that are not very fun to watch.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like the Giants are like that brand that makes a game more interesting, but the team itself it's not interesting.
Yeah.
Then Dolphins, Eagles on week 7. Bears and Chargers week 8. I don't know.
Justin Fields versus Justin Herbert. I think that's what they're banking on is that Justin Fields is going to take that next step this year as a quarterback.
This one, I hope they can play their entire game. Bills and Bengals on week 9.
Yeah, back in Cincinnati. Of course, remember, we had the whole DeMar Hamlin situation. And, of course, it ended up forcing the game in the playoffs to go to Buffalo. And Cincinnati went up there and just blew them out.
Then Jets in Las Vegas versus the Raiders. Vikings at Denver Broncos. And 49ers, Seahawks.
And that's Thursday, Thanksgiving night, by the way.
Thanksgiving night.
Yeah.
Then
and the other two Thanksgiving games are Packers Lions and Commanders Cowboys.
Oh, that Packers Lions is gonna be suck. Oh boy.
I mean, I don't know though. It could be kind of interesting. I think
you're banking a lot on the Lions. I mean, you're I think the more optimistic, pundit on the Lions.
Yeah, I am very high on the Lions this year. I'm just gonna say that right now. Because I think the second half of last year they were one of the top 10 teams in the entire league. If they just had played some defense the first month of the season, they would have been the playoff team. Easy.
So week 12, Ravens and Chargers. Justin Herbert versus Lamar Jackson. Chiefs and Packers. I didn't understand. Like Jordan Love versus Patrick Mahomes.
I mean, Jordan Love, you got to give the guy a chance. And, of course, the Packers are one of the big brands.
Eagles and at Cowboys, of course, divisional round. They always ended up playing Sunday Night Football in December. Ravens at Jacksonville. Lamar Jackson versus Trevor Lawrence. One of those, matchups that brings back memories for college football.
Also, shout out to Jacksonville getting a Sunday Night Football game. When was the last time they got one of those?
The what?
The Jacksonville getting a Sunday Night Football game. It feels like it's been forever since they've gotten one of those.
Yeah. Bengals at Steelers. And the last one that is kind of scheduled is Packers and Vikings. Of course, week 18. It depends on what game's going to be matter more for the playoffs. And last year, the last Sunday Night Football was Packers and Lions.
And I believe that beyond a certain, they've changed it up to where later on in the season, so now starting in week 5. So there's new flexible scheduling rules. So starting in 2023, flexible scheduling will be expanded, including 2 Monday Night Football. So for Sunday Night Football, it may be used up to twice between weeks 5 through 10, and the NFL's discretion between 11 and 17. For Monday Night Football, it may be used in the NFL's discretion between 12 and 17. So these were likely to change from week 5 on.
I mean, it makes sense. I think because there was a lot of criticism of why primetime games with teams that are basically eliminated or tanking.
Yeah, and I think because here's the thing: college football has always had flexible scheduling, and there's a reason why. Because you want the best games at the best times, in the NFL, I think we'll have that now with this flexible scheduling.
But overall, of course, exciting to have the release of the schedule because it's like 113 days until the NFL season starts. Of course, there was a lot of now I think the off season went to like a calm era because now all the big quarterbacks are signed. We know Lamar Jackson staying in Baltimore. We know Aaron Rodgers is in New York. I don't think there's going to be any more drama.
Yeah, I think, as you said, you aren't going to hear much else until training camp starts. So we're kind of just now in that period of the season where can I just kind of not think about football for a little while if you need to take that break, unless you're watching USFL or XFL. But I'm going to be honest, I'm not. I don't. And get ready for what promises to be a very exciting fall.
Definitely, it's going to be exciting. I mean, of course, college football starts also in 100 days, kind of like over a little bit over 100 days as well. I'm gonna be honest. I'm excited for Tennessee. I was even talking to my parents. They want me to come in December to visit them in the U.S. and I really want to see this Tennessee team. I really want to see them on a bowl game wherever they play.
Yes, me too. I am so ready for September 2nd. It's going to be absolutely incredible, I think. Some other minor notes I want to bring up just in the racing world. The NASCAR race this past weekend at Kansas was just truly unbelievable. You had Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson fighting for like the last 20 laps for the win. Kyle Larson got kind of loose off of turn 2 in the final lap. Denny Hamlin kind of nudges him into the wall, and Hamlin's able to get by and make the last lap pass to win. And then as Denny Hamlin is burning out and celebrating his win, Ross Chastain, the ever persistent lightning rod of controversy that he is in NASCAR, got into a fight with Noah Gragson, a rookie, last year's Xfinity champion. Just an insane race, best one of the year. Anytime you can get a fight at the end of a NASCAR race, it's like the NHL. Anytime you can get a fight in NASCAR, you know that you probably had a very much of a banger race. And this, I think, was a huge one for NASCAR in that, F1 was in the U.S. at the same time. They were at Miami. Max Verstappen won once again. I don't know how many wins that is for him. That he's just won a lot. And frankly, watching both, F1 was frankly not that exciting of a race in Miami. And NASCAR beat F1 in ratings. They had about 1 million more viewers in the U.S. Despite all of the hype that F1 has had the past 2 to 3 years, to me, it feels like NASCAR is kind of holding off that F1 invasion. It's kind of turning that tide around. You have to wonder, is some of that enthusiasm from F1's Drive to Survive on Netflix kind of falling apart in the U.S.?
I mean, it all depends on how exciting the season is. When you have, like, let's say 2 years ago when Verstappen and Hamilton go toe to toe, then the ratings go up. But this year looks like Red Bull's going to dominate, and Verstappen is a clear favorite. So it makes NASCAR still more interesting. And I think, I think and the F1 is going to find their space, but it kind of doesn't matter at this point. They're hosting US or not. Of course, Miami is good to see, hosting a big event like that. But in the NBA, wow, Denver has
I was
uh
going to bring this
18-point lead over Phoenix.
17-0 run for Denver right now. I mean, I said 30 minutes ago, Suns are winning the NBA Finals. I revoke that. Denver's winning the NBA Finals at this rate. So I'm going to change that pick for the end of this podcast. I don't know if the Suns are going to make it out tonight. And I will say this: the one thing I probably should have taken into account while making that pick, Phoenix does not have a deep bench. But to me, KD and Devin Booker heading into tonight have been playing so well. I think I thought they could have kind of masked that, kind of like what we saw with LeBron and Kyrie back in Cleveland a couple of years ago. But I don't know if we're going to I just don't think they have that same type of magic, But the
Uh,
Nuggets right now look like for real.
yeah, beating a team with KD and even though Chris Paul's not playing, but with all so much talent, it looks like they're gonna be favored no matter who they play, LA or Golden State.
Oh, absolutely. They'll be the favorites in their series. They'll be the favorites, I think, to win the whole championship at this point. So we may see Nuggets Celtics. And I think the Nuggets win that in 6. if that's the theoretical NBA Finals. Um, Real quick, two quick softball shout outs. I don't know if we ever talk about softball shout outs real quick. Lady Vols, SEC champions, regular season champions, 41-8 in the regular season. Congratulations to them. Ashley Rogers, just an amazing pitcher for the Lady Vols. She's actually from just up the road, up from Meigs County. It's the county right next to me here in Hamilton County. I remember her in high school, hearing about how well she did here, and now she's just killing it at UT. And the Lady Vols very well are in position to maybe make a run all the way to OKC. They are heading to the SEC tournament in Arkansas. They play Florida tomorrow morning in the quarterfinals.
And it's interesting how the team got success because Ralph Weekly left. Because before it was Ralph and Karen Weekly, co-head coaches, but it looks like Karen Weekly really took over the program, and her leadership really shine.
Well, I think also too part of it is they just in softball you got to have pitching. You got to have really really top tier pitchers. So right now, UT has been able to recruit some really top tier pitchers. I mean, this is some of their best pitching since they went to the College World Series back in 2013. So, and when you look at the Lady Vols like greatest teams, when they had like the Monica Abbotts of the world, and they had, I forget what their names were, those their sisters back in 13. That was when the Lady Vols are great. And to beat the Oklahomas of the world, you gotta have top tier pitching. So we'll see if the Lady Vols can get it done. Of course, they start their postseason tomorrow in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Also, here in Chattanooga, just some nice news. We're hosting the Division II Softball National Championships. Not sure what teams are involved in those, but starting here in 2 weeks, we'll be hosting 8 teams for a national title. So we'll be mini OKC, at least on the D2 level. Here in Grand Old Chattanooga, Tennessee, our first national championships that we've hosted since we hosted the FCS championships back in the 2000s and early 2010s, before they were taken away and put in Frisco, Texas, a Dallas suburb, which makes no sense to me because who cares in Dallas, Texas about the FCS? In Chattanooga, we cared about the FCS title. So that's my spill. And that's really all that we have here on the American side of things.
Yeah, here, before we go Brazilian soccer, of course, talk about the UEFA Champions League because there were, Brazil. I think Vini Jr., Vini Jr. and Rodrigo keeps playing stellar soccer, starting lineup for Real Madrid. What a goal by Vini Jr. Of course, De Bruyne answered in kind. So 1-1, the game's still open. But how about the Milan derby? Inter was up 2-0 in 10 minutes.
I know. And so it's like it comes on our station. It comes on CBS here in America. And so we're working in the afternoon. So it's on in the background. And we were working. We looked up. It was 2-0. As you said, before you even knew.
I mean, and it could have been 3 because there was a penalty that was, kind of reversed by VAR. But I think this game's kind of open because it's a derby, anything can happen. But Inter dominated Milan. The coach, Stefano Pizzi, looked completely lost. And what a, performance by Edwin Dzeko scoring the first goal. I think the final is going to be Inter Milan, Manchester City. And I think finally Guardiola and the City got their title. I think it's going to be City winning the Champions League.
See, I don't know. I know they're going back to Etihad, but it doesn't feel they feel like the 76ers. Like they're going to be at home. All the pressure's on them. Real Madrid just won a title last year. So I don't feel like there's as much pressure on them. But all the pressure's on Manchester City. I don't trust them in this spot.
I completely understand, but I think I think they finally figure out a way to win it. I think they're going to advance. I'm convinced that it's going to be Manchester City and Inter Milan. And I think Inter doesn't have the power to hold Manchester City. And they're finally going to get their first ever UEFA Champions League title. in their history,
Yeah.
and joining a club that is formed by Liverpool, Man United, Nottingham Forest, I believe Aston Villa, and Chelsea.
I really do think whoever wins in Ethiopia will win it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, whoever that's the real Champions League final will be in Manchester next week. So that's going to be great to watch for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel
And
like
I'm so glad it comes on CBS too. Like I'm glad America. It's easy for us to find and watch this great sporting event.
yeah, in Brazil too, we have SBT, broadcasting as well in the, open in the free TV kind of cable, also as well. And I'll definitely be watching Tuesday and Wednesday. But now, starting real quick into Brazilian soccer, of course, I'm going to start with my beloved Rio Branco. Got a miraculous tie on the road versus Ska Brazil, a team their president Edmilson played for Barcelona and Sao Paulo. Their stadium is Santana de Parnaíba, but there was a hell to broadcast. There was no broadcasting booth for me. The only radio station that was broadcasting the game, period. I was the only radio station broadcasting the game, period, and I did not have a
That's
booth.
how you secure the market, man. That's how you secure that market.
Yeah, but yeah, I have to share a broadcasting booth with the Rio Branco analysts. So that was wow. But Rio Branco got a tie with down 10 players. They scored in the 90th minute, but they need to win on Saturday because they got three consecutive ties. They're in fifth place in Group Four. They will be relegated to fifth division. I mean, there's still 7 games to play, but they gotta win on Saturday. It's a must win. The game is like Colorado Coyotes, which is the bottom of the group, a team that has 3 games, 3 losses, and conceded 8 goals, and the majority of them were from crosses, from set pieces. So hopefully Rio Branco finds their first win and get back on track. But now back to first division. I was looking to the lineup and it hasn't changed anything. Palmeiras and Santos won. Palmeiras 4-1. São Paulo tie and another loss for Corinthians. I mean, Corinthians. I'm starting to think Corinthians is in relegation zone. I don't see a way out. I'm really
I mean, after the previous hire that they made, I mean, it doesn't really shock me. It seems like the whole thing's in disarray. Like they're not doing background checks. You're not doing, you're not making the decisions that are going to keep your organization aligned. So yeah, that doesn't surprise me. There's a constant losing going on.
and the and the currently coach they hire. I think I talked last week, Van der Luxemburg. It's kind of like I compared the Tony La Russa to the White Sox. It's a vintage coach that was a lot of success in the past, but I don't know if he has keeping up with the modern trend of soccer. He has not won one single game as a Corinthians head coach. He lost to tie one, and it was a questionable tie. He should have lost that game. So I don't know. Corinthians is in relegation zone, and there's still a lot of Brazilian championship to be played. Of course, it's still week 5, 33 weeks to be played, but starts to really scare the hell out of me if Corinthians. I mean, I don't think Corinthians is gonna get relegated, but wow, I mean, for the payroll the Corinthians have, for the amount of talented, it's a truly disappointing season if they don't win anything. And it looks like they won't. I mean, they're still in Brazilian Cup and Libertadores, but I highly doubt that Corinthians is gonna make it to the group stage in Libertadores. I highly doubt that they advance to the quarterfinals of the Brazilian Cup. And in the Brazilian Championship, I don't see them going above eighth to seventh place. I mean, but the first they got to get out of the relegation zone.
I mean, it just really sounds like they got to blow up the core, and you got to
Yeah.
restart. You got to start
Oh,
over.
Corinthians really need to rebuild ASAP. A lot of their players are old. It's like a lot of those players were successful. Fabio Santos, Cássio, Renato Augusto, Fagner, Gil, Balbuena, Romero. They were successful. They were successful players, but they're not right now. Corinthians needs to revamp. Corinthians need fresh players. I don't know. I think you said it all, Nick. I think you described it all. Like, and Corinthians is going to be in a political turmoil coming this end of the year because the term for Corinthians president Duílio Monteiro Alves is up. I don't think he's going to run for re-election, but who's going to run in his camp? Who's going to be on these I won't say party, but his group that like the group that is like Duílio Monteiro Alves is in, which is like the head of the group is Andres Sanchez, which was like I think a two-time president, and his group is in charge in Corinthians since 2007. Like I don't know if they're gonna make it on the re-election. I think it's gonna be the opposition who takes over because how bad Corinthians debt is almost $1 billion. The crowd's still showing up, but how long they're gonna be supporting Corinthians? Like on Monday was still a good crowd, 36,000 for a Monday night, but I don't know if they're gonna keep this big crowds if Corinthians keep playing this awful soccer.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like they shouldn't be showing up right now as is. If there's nothing positive going for it, at some point as a fan base, you got to send messages. I think, yeah, as of all, I mean, we've literally protested a coaching hire. Sometimes you gotta send a message.
I mean, they send a message in terms of, let's say, the Kuka hire, which you can debate all you want. I have one thought, you have another, but they send a message: we don't want that kind of coach in our team, and they send another message in protesting now, not by the current coach Van der Lichtenberg, which went to talk to the hardcore fans, the hooligans, but now to the front office, Corinthians president William Monteiro Alves and his group that is leading Corinthians, which has been a disaster. I mean, he's going to be the first president since the 80s who couldn't win a title as Corinthians president. Corinthians has not won a title since 2019 and a significant title since 2017, the Brazilian National Championship. So I think, it's a disaster for a team like Corinthians to not be winning any title for the past 3 seasons.
Yeah, and it sounds like they may be in that rut for a while because there's some other Brazilian teams that are on the come up right now. It's a more crowded landscape. You can't just dominate like you used to.
Yeah. I mean, of course, Palmeiras is going to be keeping dominating. They won back-to-back state championships. Palmeiras still is favored to win the Brazilian national championship back-to-back. They're, of course, they on the top favorites to win the Libertadores. Like, who's going to stop Palmeiras? And and the fans were hoping Abel Ferreira, was going to leave Palmeiras to be a coach for the Brazilian national championship. According to the journalist Ulisses Costa, he said no to the Brazilian Confederation and be Brazilian head coach.
Wow.
I say it's crazy. If I was Abel Ferreira, I took that job.
Yeah, I mean, literally, like if you get Brazil its first World Cup in nearly a quarter century at this point, I mean, that would make you a legend in the entire country.
And I think he fits the perfect description because now the big trend is hiring a foreign coach, especially a Portuguese coach. And what's the better foreign Portuguese coach who understands the Brazilian culture, who understands the Brazilian league, the Brazilian players better than Abel Ferreira? He's been here for almost 4 years. So hiring Ancelotti, I know he's a successful coach in Europe and he knows a lot of Brazilian players in Europe, but he doesn't understand the Brazilian culture and the Brazilian players that play in Brazil as Abel Ferreira. For me, Abel Ferreira got to be the coach. I think it's ludicrous for him to say no. I mean, I know it was one journalist that said he said no to the Brazilian Confederation, but still, I understand the rival fans of Palmeiras want him to leave because this guy clearly is the Alex is becoming the Alex Ferguson of Brazil. He won every possible title except for the FIFA Club World Cup, which everybody makes fun of. But for me at this point, it's a title that is like really hard to. It's like TCU to the national championship. They might make it there, but they're gonna face the Georgias and the Alabamas, which is like Palmeiras facing Chelsea or Manchester City or Real Madrid. You might go toe to toe, but the difference is really big.
Yeah, but next year you can't lose to Al Nasir.
Yeah, we can't. Yeah, we can lose in the semifinals. That's that was disgraceful for Flamengo. Like you can't lose in the semis. Like it's okay to lose in the final by a European side, but not to Al Nasser or Al Hilal. Like you just can't. It's just.
So while we're on the topic, what do you think about Messi heading to Saudi Arabia? At least the rumor.
I think it makes sense because he knows that his last shot of making big money is to go head to Cristiano Ronaldo. Because think about it, like when both plays, like Barcelona Real Madrid rivalry has not been the same since both left. So they probably want to recreate the rivalry they had in Spain in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, I'll just say that. I mean, it's blood money. It is straight up blood
Yeah,
money. Considering what Saudi Arabia has done in Yemen and just everything that goes into OPEC, it's just it's kind of interesting to see how Saudi Arabia is trying to salvage their image by being the sports friendly figure, but you can't
or
really do forever.
do you think they're gonna first, try to sign him for Newcastle and then for Saudi Arabian league? Because he still have like 1 or 2 good years left, and Newcastle definitely would love to have a Messi because the Saudis took over Newcastle and they want to make a big splashy hire to kind of say, "Hey, Manchester City, hey Liverpool, we're here, we're coming for you."
Yeah, but like, how good could Newcastle actually be, though?
I mean, they're in the top four, but I think as Messi, and Messi has not played in Premier League, but I don't think City or United wanted him. I think I don't know. I think Newcastle can be an interesting pick.
Feels like Tottenham could use. I mean, Tottenham recently
No, I don't see them
had
going.
some
I don't
had
see.
some results.
I don't see him going to Tottenham. I don't see. I think Premier League. I see him Newcastle. I think Manchester City because Pep Guardiola, and that's it.
Yeah. So, wow. And I was looking at the table. Leicester City is about to get relegated.
Yeah,
Man,
that's
talk
a
about
harsh.
the rise and fall and fall and rise and fall again.
Yeah. How about Arsenal? They were in the top of the league, and with 2 weeks left, they're 1 point behind, and they lost, and they lost one and tied both games on their last three. So Arsenal, what a choke!
Yeah, I can't even believe Everton because I feel like Everton used to be like a Champions League contender, and now they just ever since they lost Tim Howard, it's just been a constant decline to where they are now.
Yeah,
Um, it feels like there's a couple of teams that are always in the middle. Chelsea, not a great year for them, only 11th. Um, yeah, but that's sad though about Leicester.
yeah. I mean, I want Arsenal to win it, but Arsenal, it's gonna choke. I think, unfortunately, their fans are gonna be disappointing. Manchester City gonna win it again, and interesting to see. Like, let's see, Nottingham Forest. I think they're gonna survive. It deserves. And Chelsea, what a terrible. I mean, I know they got new ownership, but they lost their last four games and they're in 11th place and they're still have a mild no, they don't have any relegation chance, but it's what a pathetic, season. They're the worst on the big five by far.
Oh yeah, I mean it's not even close. Not even close at all.
Oh,
In
shout
terms,
out to
go
go
ahead.
ahead, sorry.
terms of the teams that are likely coming up next year, when you look at Burnley, Sheffield, and Luton Town, which one of those has the best chance of having success next year?
Oof. I think. I mean, the first, the first goal is to survive when you're coming up from the EFL, the Championship, and but I think I think the system is Burnley and Sheffield United already got promoted, but then 3 to 6 they're gonna have a playoff, like so. Sunderland plays Luton Town, and then Middlesbrough play Coventry. But the crazy thing is, Millwall had this on their. I think they were Millwall was winning. I believe where is it? Millwall was winning 3-0, was winning easily, and with this win, they were going to fifth place and be on the playoffs. But they lost 4-3, and they were eliminated.
Wow. See,
But
that's the one team, that's the team I want to see in Premier League because of their fans and how crazy.
yeah, yeah, but they choke on their last play of the game, and they were winning by 3-0, and they lost 4-3, and they were
Swansea's barely top 10 in the EFL. And, Watford, they used to be in the EPL, and QPR, of course, infamously played Man City. So
yeah. So, but it's nice to see a team from Sheffield, a historical city, being promoted. Burnley too, and I hope out of those four, Middlesbrough. That's the team I wanted. Middlesbrough had such a tradition. They had an incredible run in UEFA Cup. I believe it was 2005, and they had a lot of Brazilian players back in the time, Juninho Paulista. But
and they have Zach Steffen too.
yeah. But before I finish, shout out to Napoli winning the Scudetto, the Italian championship, after 34 years. Their last title was 1989-1990, when they still had Maradona and Careca. So after almost 30 plus year drought, they finally got the title. They draw in Udine, and they finally got their title. Congratulations to Napoli, a team that had to go bankrupt in the early 2000s, be resurrected, and now finally got their Scudetto, their Italian championship.
I just love how fourth and fifth in Serie A are in the semis fighting each other to go to the Champions League final.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's the beauty of Champions League. Even though you can not be good in your domestic tournament, you can still make it deep into the Champions League. And I think just to finish off, Denver, it looks like they're gonna win. I mean, Jokic is dominated the rim.
I mean, this is literally a repeat of the Dallas game last year. I cannot believe the Suns are getting ran off their home floor for the second straight year in a row in an elimination game. Imagine being those fans. I wonder how many of those fans were there last year for that Game 7 against Dallas in the semis, a Western Conference semis, and how many of them are back here again watching Denver do the exact same thing.
Oh yeah, it's just disappointing. I mean, it's start questioning. Is Kevin Durant really a guy who can bring you titles? Because he won with Golden State, but Golden State won before he got there and after he got there. So how much Kevin Durant brings you to the table? That's the big question that we're going to have to ask in his offseason.
Yeah, I think if you're going to keep Kevin Durant, you're going to have to find a way to build up a roster behind him, because you're going to have to make sure he has a bench.
That's true. But that's all for Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports, episode 76.
Absolutely here. And when we come back for episode 77 next week, of course, we'll know who our conference finalists are in both NBA and NHL. And, also next week, don't let me forget to, I want to talk a lot about North Wilkesboro on NASCAR, because NASCAR makes their long awaited return to a historic track for the first time in 30 years. And I think that's going to be an amazing event. So for episode 76, recorded here on May 11th, 2023, that was Gustavo Tomazeli from Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil. And I'm Nicholas Hill, live from Chattanooga, Tennessee of the United States. And you've been listening to the only Brazilian and American sports podcast. You'll have a good one.